This is AJ from Sports Hub Media with Sheng Peng, beat writer for the San Jose Sharks and editor-in-chief for San Jose Hockey Now. Thanks for joining me.
Hey AJ, what's up?
So you've been my go-to source for Sharks news, so I am really excited to talk to you
Oh, thank
not
you.
only about the Sharks, but also about your career and how you got to where you are. So let's start at the beginning. Tell me a little bit about your childhood, like where did you grow up
hmm
and how did your interest in hockey begin?
Well, I grew up in Los Angeles. Actually, I was born in Taiwan, but I moved over. My family moved over when I was very young. And I didn't know anything about hockey growing up. I was in Los Angeles in the 80s, so who knew anything about hockey? But in 1988, I was six, and I heard on the news that the Kings, I don't know what the Kings were, but the Kings had acquired the greatest hockey player ever, the best hockey player
Wayne
ever.
Gretzky,
Wayne Gretzky. And I was already into sports. LA in the 80s, if you know anything about LA in the 80s,
the
you had
Lakers.
the Lakers, Showtime Lakers. The Dodgers were good. The Raiders were good. Even the Rams were good back then. But I didn't know anything about hockey until I heard that they acquired the best player in the world. And I didn't know what hockey was, but that sounded pretty cool to me. And so the next memory of the Kings was them introducing Wayne Gretzky in a press conference. And that's when they introduced the white, silver, and black jerseys, the ones that they kind of took from the Raiders look. And I thought those were the coolest thing. And so I started watching the Kings in 1988 and I never stopped watching hockey.
And were the Kings your favorite hockey team growing up?
They were my favorite team growing up, and they were my favorite team until I decided to become a hockey writer. And when I became in this position, a writer, journalist, whatever, it was really important for me to cover the team objectively, whatever team I was covering. And so if I was covering the Kings, I try to be objective. If I was covering, I eventually would cover the Golden Knights in their very first year, kind of moving
Mhm.
fast forward in the story. But basically, I decided that I couldn't do both. I couldn't be a fan and I couldn't cover, say, the Sharks objectively. And so I basically stopped being a fan. And it was really weird at first because I was a fan for so long. But to paraphrase Ivan Drago and Rocky Four, I fight for me. And that's why I realized that it was a better career decision for me to focus on the team that I'm covering, which happens to be the Sharks. And so I stopped being a fan at that moment.
So, um, when did was that 1988 when you knew you wanted to cover hockey, and how did you land your first beat writing positions?
Well, no, it's a lot of time from 1988 to 2014 when I really started blogging. So, no, in between, I wanted to do other things. I studied literature, I studied creative writing. I thought I was going to be a poet and I was going to be a professor in a university, and that didn't quite happen. But I always did love writing. I always did love sports back to when I was a kid. And so I decided to do both together and see where that would take me. And so my first beat position ended up being I covered the Ontario Reign, the Kings AHL team in 2015-16. And
Mhm.
then I moved on to cover the Vegas Golden Knights in 2017-18, their expansion year. And that's when I stopped being a Kings fan because they played each other in the playoffs. And when they play each other in the first round, doesn't help me if the Kings do well. Really, it doesn't help my career at all. And that's really when I made that decision to stop being a Kings fan
Mhm.
because, again, I pick me. And so I covered them. And then the next year, I moved over to cover the Sharks in 2018-19. And I've been covering the Sharks since then.
What were some of your biggest challenges starting off at as a beat writer?
Money. Definitely, it's not the most lucrative of jobs. It still isn't. But back then, when I started off, and it's still kind of a problem today, but people expect everything for free. That even means your employers. So I started off writing for the Hockey Writers, Hockey Buzz, and they were paying me per click. And if I was lucky to be making $100 a month. And eventually I moved to SB Nation. I was writing for Jules from the Crown and Fear of the Fin. Fear of the Fin is the Sharks SB Nation. And I was making a $50 stipend. So all that was sort of an investment in myself because I thought I could make it to a place. I thought my work was singular, good enough, stood on its own enough, would stand out compared to other writers that I could make something of a living from it, that people would follow and subscribe and basically spend money on my work. I did believe that. And so that was all investment to get to the place where I am today. Which I do think again, all the subscribers I have on San Jose Hockey now, all the paid subscribers, and have a good number of them, and those are the reason why I'm here talking to you today.
Yeah. So can you cover the transitions from the hockey writers to the Jewels from the Crown? And on your LinkedIn page, it said a freelance writer for the LA Kings, then
Mhm.
being a beat writer of Hockey Buzz, and all of that from there on.
Yeah, yeah, I've been at a lot of different places. The year that I worked for the Kings, actually, I could tell the story a little bit now since we're a number of years away from it, but that was during the 2016-17 season. That was their 50th anniversary. I was such a big Kings fan back then that I knew stuff that nobody really knew about the franchise. Like I'll give you an example of this. So I did a series of stories for the Kings, a weekly story for them that year called called 50 Forgotten Stories, and it was just
I
digging up forgotten stories about the Kings.
I think I've heard of that story, but
Oh,
those.
okay. Well, that means something if you've heard of it. Yeah, but anyway, though, I was just digging up on forgotten stories about the team. And I would look through old newspaper archives back to the 60s when the Kings were formed just to find stuff that nobody knew. Like, for example, the very first Kings training camp in 1967, they had a Japanese player at that training camp. A player not like a Japanese Canadian player, a player from Japan at their first training camp. So that's an example of something that I pulled up looking at the newspaper archives from back then. I love finding stuff like that. And my boss at the Kings at the time told me that this was going to be your way to get into the or that you would get into the Kings press box, which was my ultimate goal to be covering the Kings on a nightly basis. That was my goal back in 2016. And he told me that I'm going to get you in next year. And the next year happened, and that's 2017-18,
Mhm.
and it did not get me in. It's not his fault. It was just a different department. I worked for a different department when I was writing for the Kings, and the people who get you into games, that's communications PR, and they wouldn't let me in because they didn't like the other site that I wrote for, Hockey Buzz. They had some problem with the couple writers past at that site. Nothing to do with me, but they wouldn't let me in. And so at that moment, I made a decision for myself. And my decision was I need to move my career forward as a hockey writer.
Mm.
And that means being in an NHL arena every night. And so I moved myself to Vegas to cover the Golden Knights. And that's when I stopped being a fan because that's a decision for me. I gave up the idea. And I tell a lot of young writers this that you may grow up with a team that you love, but you may not be able to cover that team when you get to a position of getting paid to do it and people relying on you to do it to cover a team. That you may not be lucky enough, I guess, to cover the team that you grew up with and deal with it. That's just the reality of it. If you just want to cover one team, that's your whole goal, you're really limiting yourself. If you open yourself up to the rest of the NHL, there's 31 other teams now you can cover. And if you go beyond just hockey, now there's hundreds of teams that you can cover in different sports. So anyway, that's kind of what happened. That's what kind of got me to Vegas in 2017-18, where I covered the Golden Knights for Hockey Buzz. And eventually, for personal reasons, I moved to San Jose, or I moved to San Francisco to cover the Sharks, and I'm pretty happy here. I've created something here, and I'm hoping that I can stay here a while. So that's it's not my goal to move on anymore. And I will mention this too that a lot of people still they wonder, oh, are you still a Kings fan, Sheng? People ask me that sometimes, and Really, I'm not. I've had opportunities to go back to LA to cover the Kings, and they didn't make any practical sense to me though. And so again, like it's not something in my past.
Well, that's good to know that you're happy here in San Jose.
I am. The weather's good. Just like in LA.
Your LinkedIn page also says that you were a freelance writer for the Kings and a beat writer for Hockey Buzz that covered the Vegas Knights at the same time. Was it hard covering both of them at the
Well,
same time?
they were different years, so that's why it worked out. So 2016, 17, I was still mainly covering the Kings and still blogging for Jewels from the Crown, which is the SB Nation Kings site. And oh no, actually no. I was writing for Hockey Buzz. Sorry, I wasn't at Jewels from the Crown anymore. I was writing for Hockey Buzz covering the Kings. And then I made the transition in 2017, 18 to the Golden Knights. I had started doing in the months leading up to the Golden Knights first season doing a couple things covering the Golden Knights because I was setting myself up to move in case the Kings wouldn't let me into the press box, which is what happened. So that's why maybe the LinkedIn it's the same years because I did write a couple of Golden Knights stories the in 2016 17 in the lead up, but for the most part I was still focused on the Kings, but with an eye toward leaving.
And I forgot what made you transition to the Sharks again?
My my ex-wife was here, and so I moved to be with her basically. I missed out on the top job in Vegas, and I guess I may as well since I'm just telling stories here. So I believe I was the runner-up for the athletic position for the Golden Knights. This is when the athletic was hiring for every market. And props to Jesse Granger who got the job. He's great at it. But anyway, when I didn't get the top job there, that was a big reason why I moved out to Vegas in the first place because I wanted to get the top writing job out there, and the Athletic was coming over to Vegas at the time. And when I missed out on that, it didn't make as much sense for me to stay there, even though I had kind of built up a following. And so at that point, I just kind of thought to myself, well, I should try to. I had been in a long distance relationship for a while at the time, and so my my ex moved to the Bay Area at that time, so I should try to be with her. And so that's why I moved back.
So how did San Jose Hockey Now start?
In 2020, kind of in the middle of COVID, I actually was not that far from quitting the business the writing kind of hockey writing completely or yeah completely actually, and it was during a time when a lot of people quit. A lot of people listening have probably seen people quit because there just isn't a lot of money in it. It's hard to get a following. And anyway, my current boss, the head of hockey now, Dan Kingerski, he reached out to me in think it was March or April. I don't remember when. He said, "Hey, do you want to start this site? Start your own site and see kind of what can come from it. You know, what subscribers and that sort of thing, and build it into your own business." And I thought a lot about that. I talked with my ex about it, and credit to her, she's been incredibly supportive of my career throughout our time together. So I do want to mention that. And she said, "Go for it." And so I tried, and I thought that, I had built up a little bit of following at Fear the Fin, and I thought that yeah, there's gonna be some subscribers, and that's a start, but that's not enough to kind of build a living on. And as time has gone by, though, I thought that max I would have maybe a couple hundred subscribers or paid subscribers, and I've gotten a lot more than that. I've four times that right now, and so it's shown me that there's I guess a place for me to do this here, and that the fans respond to the work. The fans are looking for dedicated daily, but not just regular coverage, but the most in-depth coverage of the Sharks that that they can find. There are definitely diehard fans out there, a lot of them, a lot more maybe than maybe I thought. And so anyway, so that's what kind of started me with San Jose Hockey Now, that I tried it and there was a good reception at the beginning. I got those couple hundred subscribers that I thought would be my kind of my maximum, my cap within the first year or two, and it just has kind of kept growing from there.
Is there a scoop, interview, or feature that you're particularly proud or is memorable to you?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, I would say nothing really comes to mind. One of the things about this business, if you like it, is that it is constant. And if you break a story 3 months ago, people aren't going to remember it really.
Mm-hmm.
Then maybe they will if it's big enough. But like in general, though, it's a what have you done for me lately business. It's very competitive, and I don't mind that. And so I like constantly being at work and constantly try to break stories and constantly try to get interesting interviews. And so I don't know. Would you ask? I think if I thought about it, I probably could think of something that stood out. And it might be like the first big one I got, the first big exclusive, or the first big whatever trade or free agent signing or details of that I got. But in general, though, it's sort of just a kind of a constant running, a constant competition, which I don't mind. And so yeah, so I can't really think of one story that stands out.
Okay. Now we're gonna talk about like doing the job. So, first, walk me through a typical game day for you.
Sure. Morning skate is usually about 10:30, and right now I live pretty close to practice, which is nice. I used to live in San Francisco, so that was quite a drive to get down here. But anyway, though, I get there for morning skate about 10:30. That's when usually you see the lines the team's going to use. You talk with the coaches, kind of his plans for the game, lines, and any questions about sort of injuries or whatever you might ask during morning skate. Talk to a couple players. Maybe there's a big storyline. Maybe Macklin Celebrini is playing Connor Bedard for the first time, or Will Smith is playing his idol Patrick Kane, stuff like that, right? So you talk to the players about sort of the story of the day or what's kind of relevant there, what kind of makes sense to talk about. And then you write a couple stories. For me, I write a preview story, and then I like to write a second story. So let's say the preview is just the preview and lines and something small that's related to everything, right? And then I like to write a little bit more of a feature story, or I assign it for somebody to write, which might be about Will Smith idolizing Patrick Kane, or Macklin Celebrini's relationship with Connor Bedard, if that's the game, right? And then I go grab lunch somewhere. And I'm a bit of a foodie, so I like to try things out. But I go grab lunch somewhere, and then I take a pregame nap. And I always need a nap. I always need a pregame nap. So I nap for hour, depending on how much time that I have. And in the old days, before I moved to San Jose, I would nap in my car. And nowadays, it's nice that living close to both practice and the rink, that I can nap in my place before a game. And so nap for about, let's say, an hour or so, and then I get up and try to get to the game before some guys like to get to the game. Some of my colleagues like to get to the game really early, and that's great. I like to get there a little bit late myself because I'm really just interested in the lines and sorry, confirming the lines which you do during warm-ups. So if a game is at 7:30, I make sure to get there by 7. And so get there by 7, get the lines together, and yeah, and then cover the game and then write. That's probably what 3 stories. Yeah, and I write a game diary. I do, oh, well, 2 stories, I guess, and then I do kind of a post game recap with the best quotes and then an opinion of the game. So that's 2 stories right there. And then in game, if something exceptional happens, like let's say, I don't know, Colin Graff scores a hat trick, so that's cool. Let's do a little quick story highlighting Colin Graff's hat trick, right? So that story might come out. So anyway, so that's another couple stories right there. A game day. I usually stay at. I prefer to do, even though I live close to the rink now, I prefer to do my work at the arena before I leave because if I go home, I might just fall asleep or eat something and fall asleep. So I usually work at the rink. Let's say a game is 10:30. We go downstairs. We go, I'm sorry, game 7:30, and the game will end around 10-ish, and we go downstairs for press and stuff, media stuff, talk to the players in the locker room. We get up back to the press box about 10:45. I'll probably leave the arena about say 1 a.m., having turned in my sort of my game story, my recap story.
Um, I'm just curious, is there a media section at SAP Center or do you have another seat like in the arena?
Yeah, there's a media section. It's the press box. And that's where they sit all the reporters, and that's where they're gonna sit you one day, AJ.
Um, has the daily game day routine changed when you first started that much?
No, not that much. The biggest difference is just where I live, I guess. So when I used to live in San Francisco, I would drive an hour down to make it to morning skate and then do all the things I mentioned, the preview line story, talk to the coaches, players, try to write a different story. Just the difference is that I would sleep in my car, often in the parking lot at SAP Center before a game. And actually, I guess this is kind of different since I was in my car and I try to wear a suit for the game when I can. I would change in my car. So that's kind of that could be awkward at times to find a spot where nobody was looking or whatever and change in my car. Which I don't know how to do anymore. I can change at home now, which is nice, which I prefer. But besides that, then of course when I finished my work, then I would have to drive an hour back to San Francisco. So it just was a longer day. So now it's a shorter day. But no, my routine's been pretty much the same from the beginning. So morning skate, write stories, lunch, nap, wake up, go to the game, and stay late to write.
What does your work look like on a non-game day during this past season?
Well, like I mentioned, it's constantly competitive, so I'm still working almost just as hard as a game day, I would say. So wake up. Usually there's a practice if it's at home or if I'm traveling, there's a practice to go to. Go to practice, get stories there. Practice is usually a better time to get stories because the players are more relaxed. It's they're not worried about the game at night. So you get better stories, players give you better just they're just more relaxed and they'll tell you more, talk to you more, whatever. And so yeah, so then try to write a couple of stories off of that. And then yeah, and then have dinner and watch some TV and then go to sleep and start the cycle again.
Mhm. How about on a day where you're on the road,
Hmm.
like in Edmonton or LA or
Sure. Sure.
Detroit?
Well, it's really not that different, except that I gotta find a way to get to the game, right? And so it depends on where I'm staying. In LA, I'm from LA, so I stay at my family home. So I gotta drive over to crypto.com arena. That's about a 30-minute drive. In Detroit, when I was last there, I stayed at an Airbnb that was walkable to the arena. So that'd be about a 20-minute walk. So just in the morning walk, same kind of thing though, just walk to the arena, morning skate, get lines, talk to the coach, talk to the players, write a couple stories, get back to wherever I'm staying at, and then take a nap. Naps are really important. So, and have something to eat, and then take a nap, and then get ready for the game. So it doesn't really change if you're in Edmonton, you're in Detroit, you're in LA, or you're in San Jose. So it's one of those things where if you don't mind that kind of routine, then it's a good job for you. If you want something different, well, you do get something different every day, though. So I shouldn't say that. You get something different on the ice every day, and that's the maybe the coolest part of the job, getting to see amazing players do amazing things. So anyway, though, it doesn't really change the routine in no matter the city. And I think that you'll probably find as you do this that you want a routine. You want something that you're comfortable with when you are in different cities. You want something that you just kind of know that this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. These are the times I'm going to do it at. And that kind of helps you kind of be as productive and competitive as possible.
Um, How do you balance breaking news with in-depth analysis and feature writing?
You got to do a little bit of everything on my website. On my website, I when I opened it and I try to keep up to the promise that it would be a 24/7 Sharks news site, but with the most depth possible. And so it's kind of two different things that I'm trying to do. But I try to give you all the news, but I also try to talk with scouts, talk with players, talk with player agents, talk with team people, and try to give you the most insight. And so I try to have deep stories like that. Also go into micro stats and analytics too. And so insight that other people don't have, and also break down video too. And so I go into a depth in those areas, but then balance out with, yeah, got to try to chase news down too. So I try to be an everything site for all Sharks fans. And I hope I've done a good job of that. That's been a goal from the beginning. So there isn't really, I guess you asked about the word balance. So it's to not be too much of any of those things. But I will say though that one thing I've learned the last couple of years is that the people that are really spending money on your website are your subscribers. And so I really changed my sort of my, how do you say, my focus, or not changed it, but I pushed my focus more toward more in-depth stories because I want to give people stuff that's worth subscribing to. And so I would say that I guess is a little bit more of the balance where I push a little more energy in that direction.
What's your process for developing sources?
Um, it's honestly just talking to people, getting to know people, and getting to know people beyond just what can you do for me as a source. It's really not much more than that, I think. Yeah, like yeah, like great to get whatever like information from somebody, but just like just like you and me, they're whoever I'm talking to, they have kids, they have a personal life at home, and it's caring about that and knowing about that, and I think that's a big part of it.
How do you approach asking tough questions?
I think a lot of times you just ask it. I do think a lot about, is this fair to ask? Is this fair to ask somebody this question at this time? Obviously in Macklin Celebrini case, he's just 18. Is this something that needs to be on his plate? Is that fair? So I do think a lot about that before I ask. But when I have decided that the question is fair to ask, I just ask it and try to ask it in an objective way. I try to ask it in a way that doesn't lead them to an answer. Really, in the end, people want to hear what the player, the coach, or whoever, what they think. They don't really want to. They don't really care in these situations with the tough questions. They don't really care as much of what I think. They care about what the person being asked the question thinks. So I just ask the question sort of in a just a very flat way and just a neutral way, and let the person answer it.
Um, what's most difficult about covering a professional sports team on a daily basis?
Good question. The most difficult thing, I guess, if you don't enjoy the grind, it really is really time consuming. And it's time consuming even in the off season because you're still covering free agency, what the team can do to get better. That's a big topic of conversation, right? And you need to serve the fans, especially the ones that are subscribing. And so what do they care about? And that's something I think about on a daily basis. And so the amount of work is really hard, but I like the work. I love the work. And so that's why I keep doing it after all these years. And I've worked to build what I've built. But if you don't enjoy that grind, then it's hard to do it on kind of the regularity, I guess, with which I do it.
Well, the fans are happy with your work. There's a Reddit thread that says like we all love Sheng Peng's analysis.
I haven't read that one before because I would say in the past few years, I don't know if people like my work as much. So I don't know if that comes with just more people knowing you or whatever. That's yeah, but either way though, that's nice to hear. But yeah, I also I know I also have my share of haters too, and that's part of the business too. So part of what you have to deal with too, that people will there's always going to be people who dislike you no matter what you do.
Have you had any players get angry with what you wrote? And does it happen frequently, or how do you handle it?
I definitely have had players get angry with what I wrote and talk to me about it. It doesn't happen regularly that they confront me about it. I'll say that. It could happen that they are angry about it and they just don't tell me, which maybe that happens a lot. I couldn't tell you, but um, I think when that has happened, I just listen to the player. I mean, he has a side, you listen to it, and then you listen to him, and maybe he has good points, and you say, "Hey, you know what? You're right. I maybe that was unfair." Or you listen to him, you say, hey, that's just what I saw, man. I'm sorry. So it's not about getting in a fight with somebody. It's about just listening to them. And if you think you're right, then you stand your ground. And usually a player will respect that. Or if the player makes a good point, that you keep an open mind. It's not about being right. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. That like I think when things like this happen, that both either side gets dug in, like, oh, I got to be right. I need to it's I don't know if it's a sort of um a pride thing that people have, but it's not about that in that case. So it's be fair. And that's what I try to do. And that's why I think that I haven't had to deal with too much of players being angry at me or agents or whoever because or the Sharks management. And they've all been angry at me at certain points. So I don't want to say that they've never been angry at me, but I do really try to be fair.
How has social media changed the way you report and write, if it has changed it?
Yeah, I don't know if it's changed it so much because I grew up with social media. I did grow up without it when I was much younger, but when I started really writing seriously in 2014, that social media was a big thing then. Twitter especially, right? Twitter is still big. So I don't know. I don't know if it's changed it really. It's really about the same. Social media is faster, so that's why like if you get like a big like you hear something big, you put that out on social media faster, and then you write the kind of you spend more time in-depth story. That's usually the kind of the order of things, but that's not a change though. That's I think how it was in 2014 too. So I don't know. I'm not sure. I guess if I thought about it more, there are probably other things like in terms of there are different social media mediums or platforms or whatever now that maybe make things different, like TikTok and things like that. So there is something to that I can get better at actually. But I don't know. I don't know if I can think of a way that social media has really changed things from what they were. Social media just makes you maybe even more careful because I've made mistakes in reporting and oh shoot, I gotta delete that tweet really fast because otherwise it's gonna spread. Or if the tweet's been out there for a couple hours, okay, if I was wrong about something, I got to apologize. I need to own my mistake. And so there's sort of that where you can't cover things up in a way, I guess. But I think that was the same in 10 years ago too. So
Um, what's the most rewarding part of your job?
it means a lot when fans tell me how much they value my work. It really does. I know it sounds like a corny thing to say, but um I'm a very competitive person, so I do this to be the best and so best at what I'm doing. And so to get that feedback from fans, it means that at least for this fan, the whoever's talking to you, I mean, that you're the best at what you're doing. And so that means a lot to me. I do love breaking a story when I do break that feels good too, to kind of get that, maybe that larger recognition like nationally and stuff for that. So that's cool too. I enjoy that. I enjoy just watching really good hockey. Sharks have not had a lot of that in the last 6 years, but when the Sharks were good, or when I was covering the Golden Knights, and the first year the Golden Knights made a Stanley Cup final run in their expansion year, that was really special. And really special to see Game 7, the Sharks and Golden Knights in 2019, things like that. Just those kind of moments that are going to, at least for that fan base, live forever. It's really special to be a part of those. So those are some of the best things I can think of. So
Um, Now we're going to the state of the Sharks. So,
okay.
how would you sum up the Shark season and what were your key takeaways, both positive and negative?
Positives were Macklin Celebrini and, and Will Smith, William Eklund, another year of growth. So I'd say the young Sharks were pretty positive. Askarov showed promise, Mukama Doolin. The negatives were almost everything else. Um, So let's say the Sharks, I think though that is definitely moving in the right direction because you have a linchpin guy like Celebrini around. It's going to be another tough year this year, I would say, but they have made some. I've liked their offseason acquisitions, and so I think those will help the team get better. And so yeah, they're just kind of moving it forward, kind of slowly but steadily, which is good, which is fine. There's no need to kind of rush this. So it overall, I would say the state is good because you have a guy who looks like a franchise player in Macklin Celebrini, and you have a lot of guys around him that look like they are going to be excellent star or support players around your franchise player. Guys like Will Smith and Eklund and Sam Dickinson and Askarov, and I can go down the line. So there's a lot of promise there, a lot to be excited about for sure.
The Sharks drafted Michael Misa with the number 2 pick. Do you think he will be in the lineup this upcoming season?
I think they're going to give him a chance. I don't know if he's going to stay in the lineup, but the way the rules work, Michael can play 9 games with the Sharks and it won't count against his contract. And he can then be sent back to his junior league. And so if I were to bet what would happen, that it would be that or he stays with the Sharks the whole season. I'm not really sure. I need to see Michael against better competition to really make up my mind if he's going to be with the Sharks this season or not. And I won't see Michael against better competition until September when training camp starts.
In one of your articles, you said Misa's body isn't as NHL ready as Macklin Celebrini's at the time last year. What do you mean by that?
Well, Celebrini, you could watch him. That he was. People were telling me even before the Sharks drafted him, right when the Sharks drafted him, that he was already NHL strong. And you watch a lot of players, right? You watch a lot of like 18-year-old, 19-year-old players come to NHL, and they just look much smaller than everybody else. Will Smith is the example of that, right?
Yeah.
And you can get by with your intelligence, your hockey IQ, which is what Will Smith did, which William Eklund has done early in his career too. But ideally, though, you want a guy who is strong, who can battle along the walls and the corners. And Macklin, for whatever reason, was just really mature as an 18-year-old, along with being incredibly talented. And that combination made him, well, you saw what happened in his first season. He put up 63 points. He was a Calder
Hmm.
finalist. And so that's unusual to find, though. Usually, when you draft a player, they need to really grow into their body. They don't come into the league as basically a man's body, but with the skill of a Macklin Celebrini. So Misa may have skill that is reminiscent of a Will Smith or a Macklin Celebrini, but I'm not sure. Watching him during the prospect scrimmage during
I would do
development camp.
that.
Yeah, I don't get the sense that he quite has the kind of that strength yet. And if he doesn't have the strength, then he needs to be smart enough and quick enough to survive in a man's game. And I'm not sure that that's there yet. There's nothing wrong with that if it takes him a year or so, but I'm not sure if that's there yet.
How about Sam Dickinson? Do you think his body is NHL ready?
Oh, sure, sure. Sam, that's not Sam's problem. Sam skates like an NHLer. He is big. He is strong too, and he is NHL strong. But I think with Sam though, it's a little different problem, not problem, but a little different thing with Michael Misa or Will Smith, where Michael Misa and Will Smith, their hockey IQ is really upper level, off the charts, elite in that range. Sam, I think, still needs to work on that, sort of processing decisions, making decisions faster, making decisions at an NHL speed. And that's kind of why he hasn't made it yet because he's physically dominant for his level and he's physically strong enough. He won't be dominant at the NHL level, but he's physically strong enough, I think, for the NHL level. But it's a question of his processing, his pace, his basically his hockey computer in his head, if it is fast enough for the NHL level. And again, for a lot of guys, it takes some time for them to get used to the speed of the NHL. It's kind of like when you learn driving. Like I remember when I learned driving. Now, you haven't learned driving yet, but one day you'll learn. You get on
Mhm.
the freeway and things are moving at 70, 80 miles per hour, right? That's way different than driving around your house when you're
Yeah.
driving at 20, 30 miles per hour, or different than when you're biking around the neighborhood, right? You're going at 10 miles per hour, just different speeds of processing. So when Sam Dickinson gets to the freeway, I'm not sure how well he's going to do. Not sure about that part of it yet.
Um, do you think the Sharks can be a playoff contending team, or do they need another year or two?
Yeah, they'll need another year or two. You put it nicely. I think that a lot has to go right for them to make the playoffs this year. I will play along and tell you a few things that will have to happen. Let's see. Macklin Celebrini will have to become a superstar this year. Will Smith will need to be like a point per game player. Dmitry Orlov, Nick Leddy, and John Klingberg, these guys will have to go back in time to 5 years ago when they were great NHL defensemen. And they're still good NHL defensemen now, but they need to go back in time to be great NHL defensemen, find that fountain of youth. Askarov has to be incredible, which is possible. He's a very talented goalie. So those are some of the things that have to happen. So a lot of ifs.
I mean, during the prospect scrimmage, one of the goalies, I think it was Davis,
Matt Davis,
33, he
sure.
did really well. Like he was not letting Team White score.
Sure. Sure, he was, but we talk about the different levels, right? Like
Yeah.
the prospect scrimmage is like a drive around your neighborhood, or it's like you on your bike going around the neighborhood. The NHL is the freeway. So I don't know how Matt Davis is going to do playing in traffic on the freeway. So
Okay. And now we're gonna go to some personal questions. So,
sure,
do you follow any other sports besides hockey?
sure, yeah, I'm a big Lakers and Angels fan, and it's nice because I can be a fan. I don't cover basketball, I don't cover baseball, so I can still be a fan. Also, tell I'm a big fan of my fantasy football team. So I don't really have a football team that I cheer for, but whoever I've drafted this year in my draft, that's my team.
What can we find you doing when you're not working?
I like watching movies a lot. I'm gonna watch Superman on Thursday. I'm a big movie guy in general, so I like watching all kinds of movies, classic movies, black and white movies. My favorite channel is Turner Classic Movies TCM, but I also like watching all kinds of other things. Like to watch all kinds of different kinds of shows, mostly into really good dramas or like sci-fi kind of things, right? Like my most recent shows I watched were Pachinko on Apple TV. That show is incredible. I watched Severance season two, which I didn't like as much as season one. I watched Andor, which is amazing. I don't like the rest of the Star Wars shows, but Andor is amazing. Highly recommend both seasons of Andor. So anyway, I like to watch a lot of stuff. I just moved into a new place, so I'm enjoying putting my place together. And also too, I mentioned I'm a foodie, so I like to try different restaurants out. So yeah, so those are some of the things that's what you see me doing when you asked me how things are different in different cities for me. So that's different. When I go to Edmonton and when I go to Detroit, when I go to any city, I like to try different restaurants out.
Um, what is your favorite book?
Oh, good question. Um, I haven't read a lot as much in recent years, but like I mentioned, I do have a background in it, a degree in it. So my favorite book is probably I'm gonna go with the old favorite, Don Quixote. Don Quixote is a classic Spanish novel. It's about basically for you, so I imagine you may not know who that is. That's about a really old guy who thinks that he is a knight. He is a he basically a guy with maybe a mental disease who thinks that he's really special, and maybe it ends up that he's not, but he is great in other ways. So anyway, so Don Quixote, that's a book that I really love. I still have a love for poetry, even though I don't write or read it much anymore. But my favorite poet is John Keats. He is a poet from the 19th century. I like older things. So
How about favorite food?
ooh, good question. Probably on a. I like to eat almost everything. Only foods I really don't like eating are I can name them and probably in fingers. Like I don't like Thai food that much. I don't like eggplant. I don't like things like that. So I mostly like most foods and I'm happy to try most things. But most cases though, I like Mexican food, I guess. That's I like to try different Mexican food places out and kind of there's a lot of good Mexican food in San Jose, but maybe I like to figure out what are the great places in San Jose.
Any Mexican food in particular?
Mm, A burrito, probably. Nothing too special there, but I like a good burrito. But anything though, a good taco, quesadilla, all those kind of things. So whatever your place does the best, I'm gonna try.
Yeah, my family went to New York for spring break, and
Hmm.
when the Sharks face the Rangers or the Islanders in New York
Sure.
next season, there's a lot of food options.
Yes, there is. I lived in New York actually for 5 years, so I know. That's where I went to grad school.
How about your favorite show?
Well, that's a good question because it's always kind of changing, but I would say my favorite all-time show is The Wire. It's a HBO show. I think it's might be a little too mature for you, so but anyway, though, it's a show about it's actually the show that made me realize that, I don't have a lot to offer in terms of creative kind of fiction or storytelling because The Wire did it. The Wire is, if you guys haven't watched it, if you guys are watching the show, it's basically a show about the decline of American city and in different areas, in education, in media, in politics, in law enforcement. So it's really just a smart show. Love the show. It's like a novel to me. So it's like an old school kind of novel, a 19th century novel to me, except that it's set in 2000s Baltimore. But great show, great show.
Following up on favorite food, what's your favorite dessert?
Oh, well, as you can see by me, a lot. But probably something like custard, that kind of thing. I like a lot of custard, creme brulee, flan, that sort of thing. I like cheesecake a lot too. So I've named like five things right. You asked for one thing, so so anyway, those are some of the ones I like.
And if you could travel to any place in the world for free right now, where would it be?
Um, I think I haven't been to England yet. That's a one place that I've been to a lot of places on my list already that I wanted to go to in my life, but I haven't gone to England. So I'd like to go to England and learn about the old poets and the old writers and just guys like that, William Shakespeare and John Keats and William Wordsworth and Lord Byron and people like that. So that's what I really want to do when I was in high school. And so I never did that. So that might be something nice for me to do.
I would like to go to England too.
Good call.
If you could meet any person, alive or dead, who would it be?
Oh. Hmm. Boy, I don't know. I don't really have a good answer for that because like I know everyone would say something like Albert Einstein, but what am I going to talk to Albert Einstein about? I don't know a lot about physics. I have a lot of respect for Albert Einstein, but I just don't have anything to talk to him about really. And yeah, I can meet like some great hockey person, but I want to talk more than hockey with somebody. So I actually don't know. I can't answer that question right now about who I want to meet actually. So.
Then the last question I have is, what would your all-time hockey team be?
Oh, all-time hockey team. Okay. Oh, okay. Let's see. Well, a hockey team is built of four lines, but I'm not going to tell you all 20 players.
Yeah.
Let's just go with the first line. So, and let's balances. I like balance too. So I'm not going to just pick the highest scoring players or whatnot. So, um, okay. So I did grow up a Wayne Gretzky fan, so he's what got me into sport anyway. So okay, so let's say he's my first line center, but need a little balance, a little speed too. So okay, so I think putting Yari Curry with him is good because you have the defensive presence and you have his shot. So Yari Curry at his best. Now you need a little bit of maybe some grind or some speed or something like that. So I'm trying to think of a guy that really fits that sort of or do I just put a super team out there? Okay. You know what? No, I'm gonna make this fun. So let's put a little power and skill on the side of Gretzky and Curry. Let's do Mark Messier in his prime. So I was tempted to say Lemieux, but I think that's too easy. But I like a little power and skill, and let Gretzky handle the fancy stuff. On defense, I think you got to go with Bobby Orr. You need that game breaking ability. And then to support a Bobby Orr, I think you want somebody a little more stay at home, but who is also good offensively. Maybe a Larry Robinson, I think, could be a good blend. Though I don't know about the handedness part. This part I don't quite remember. I don't know if Robinson and Orr will fit with the handedness part on defense, but that's the kind of idea though of a blend of Bobby Orr's game breaking, Bobby Orr's speed, Bobby Orr's just overall game with Larry Robinson's a little more defensive, but also too a very talented puck mover and whatnot. And in goal, I'll go with Hasek. Hasek is, for my money, the best goalie that I've seen in just terms of guy could stop anything and everything. And it's unfortunate that in his very prime, he wasn't playing for the best teams. But he is if I needed a save, if my life depended on a save, that Hasek in his prime is the guy that I would go with. So anyway, so that would be my top six there.
Uh, that's it for our questions. So thank you again, Fang, for joining me here. It's been an honor to have you.
Thank you for having me, AJ.
Thanks.